An Australian stamp randomly makes its way onto the table, and what better symbol of Australia than to have a kangaroo present on the stamp? The value is 45 Australian dollar cents, and beneath the photograph is simply the word kangaroo. Looking at the cancellation, we can see that this stamp was mailed from Perth. WA stands for Western Australia, and 6000 is Perth's postal code. I'm guessing that the date should have been in the middle, and I looked very carefully for an impression or an outline but saw nothing. But right above the kangaroo shadow is the date 1994. And I was able to confirm online that this stamp was issued on the 12th of May of that year. While I was trying to look up a kangaroo stamp online, the stamp that kept showing up is this one. It's Australia's first stamp, known as the Roo. So Australia became a country in 1901. 12 years later, they decided to issue out their first standard stamp as a country. Prior to that, they were using all their former British colony type stamps. But they decided to hold a competition for the design of this first stamp. Thousands of entries were submitted, and an adaptation of one of the submitted designs was decided, with this kangaroo in the map of Australia. Now, the stamp was controversial because the government in Australia at the time was pro-republic, and they really wanted no representation of the British Crown on the stamps. So the Roo was perfect, but later on that year, a pro-monarch government took over. And what's the first thing that they do in power? Put the king on the stamp. So here's the first and second stamp of Australia. So when the pro-republic government returned to power, so did the Roo. And when the pro-monarch government returned to power, so did the king. And this went back and forth throughout the 1920s and 1930s. Now, throughout the years, Australia has printed a whole variety of stamps, but some of them included the monarch's profile, and some of them included kangaroos, including a couple of stamps that featured the Roo stamp, such as these two stamps. And it is still a major discussion in Australia today. I just love how these stamps played in this political feud. Now, looking into it, the Queen of England really doesn't have an active role in the Australian government today. She's more of a symbolic head of state, and those who are pro-republic are still pushing to have the Queen removed as head of state because they would rather see an Australian head of state, not some foreign queen somewhere else. The monarchists, however, the people that support the Queen, say, for head of state, who's better than the Queen? Also got a hold of a $5 Australian note. Check it out. She's on the money as well. So her presence is definitely there. Which do you prefer, Queen or kangaroo? So listen to this. Some guy in 2013 was trying to sell his King George V stamp. That's this one that I was showing earlier. He was trying to sell it on eBay for 99 cents and nobody bought it. So he took it to a stamp fair and realized that the stamp was worth $100,000 because it had a sideways watermark. Whoa. Now, I'll be the first person to tell you that I have no idea what I'm doing, but I looked it up online, and lighter fluid is one method for finding the watermark on a stamp. You could also use watermark fluid, but lighter fluid apparently works just as well and is less expensive. Doesn't sound like a good idea, and I don't necessarily trust it, but let's see what happens. Now, you're supposed to use a black tray and place the stamp face down in it. And from here, you just completely cover the stamp with the liquid. Now, the watermark came out pretty well, but I'll also outline it for you. And you can see that the watermark is upright. So this stamp is not worth $100,000. Now, watermarks are placed on the paper that the stamps are printed on, but it's placed when the stamp paper itself is just made and still wet. And it's really just a design that is placed on the back of this paper that then gets fed into the printing machine where the stamp is then printed onto the paper. Now, when the paper was fed into the printing machine, it must have been placed the wrong way around, which is why that particular stamp had a sideways watermark. And all 120 stamps on that sheet should have had a sideways watermark. So there are 119 stamps out there that are unaccounted for with this particular error. Most of them probably got thrown out, but there is a chance that someone out there may actually have one. The stamp came out okay, no damage at all, and doesn't smell like lighter fluid, but I'm still a bit skeptical to use this stuff After all, it says extremely flammable and harmful. But if anybody else has some knowledge on this or some experience, please comment below. I'm very curious. Again, no riches for me today, but an interesting discussion about the Roo versus the Crown. So hit that subscribe button to see more videos coming soon. Until next time, happy collecting.